Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to be discussing the history of motor racing in Las Vegas. This is my first video branching out into other forms of racing and not just Formula 1. I will go from the origins of official motorsport in Sin City right up to the present day. Also, I'd just like to thank everyone for the support on the Matteo Fabi video that I posted last week. I really appreciate getting thousands of views from you guys. And with that, let's get into the video. The first circuit in Sin City to host major racing competitions was the Las Vegas Park Speedway. However, its inauguration didn't come without controversy. The idea for the first racecourse in Vegas was proposed by Joseph M. Smoot, who had hitched a ride from Brooklyn in New York on the East Coast to Nevada in the west of the country to rebuild his life over there. He planned to build a dirt oval in the south side of the city and host horse racing events, claiming he had also been involved in the construction of several racetracks in California and Florida. He received $2 million of funding courtesy of 8,000 separate investors, money which they thought would be used to build the track. However, Smoot's intentions were brought into question by Hank Greenspun, the man who had driven across the country to also start a new life in a new state with Smoot. Hank said, "Old Joe knew a track wouldn't have a chance, and he said so when he came here in 1946. Thus, it became clear that Smoot had no intentions to actually build a circuit. He instead wanted to pocket the investors' money for himself. The construction of the speedway was delayed past the planning opening day, and then two of Smoot's associates were charged with felony embezzlement. Joseph Smoot was then arrested on the same charges after he was unable to provide receipts for cancelled checks worth $500,000. He remained indicted until 2 years later, when the 71-year-old was found dead in a hotel room. Following his criminal charges, a trustee was appointed by a federal judge to run the Las Vegas Park Speedway. A new board of directors finished the delayed construction of the track, and on the 4th of September 1953, it was opened as a Las Vegas Jockey Club. However, the track's problems hadn't ended with its opening ceremony, as ticket booths and tote boards in the infield weren't working properly. There was also issues with parking, as some people had to wait an hour to park, while others couldn't even park at all and missed the first horse race held at the track. After 8,200 people turned up on the first day of racing, the track was closed after the third day of races for 2 weeks so they could replace the ticket booths. It was reopened, but the track was losing money fast, and so it closed again after 13 days. The last horse races happened at the Jockey Club during 1954, but this is where the track's car racing history comes in. The season finale for the American Automobile Association, or AAA, Champ Car Series took place on the old horse racing track in 1954. The 100-mile race was won by the 1958 Indy 500 winner, Jimmy Bryan, who was also that year's Champ Car Series champion. 16 cars started this race, but 6 of them had to retire after a crash on lap 2. Then in 1955, the Las Vegas Park Speedway hosted its first and only NASCAR race. They were scheduled to race for 200 laps on the 1-mile dirt oval, however the race was stopped after 111 laps due to low light levels, and Norm Nelson took the race win, which was his only race win in NASCAR. The track then went on a 4-year hiatus before returning in 1959 by hosting a USAC stock car race, which was co-sanctioned by ARCA. The race was again shortened due to darkness, and Fred Lorenzen won from pole position. And that was it for the Las Vegas Park Speedway, as the board decided to destroy the track and divide the land into 4 parcels. The land is now occupied by the Westgate Las Vegas Convention Center, and part of the Las Vegas Country Club. So, the first track in Las Vegas didn't go well, but could the next one do better? The second racetrack, built with cars in mind, in Vegas, was the Stardust International Raceway. It was developed in 1965 by a hotel casino chain that owned the Desert Inn and Stardust brands. It was a flat circuit that measured 3 miles or 4.8 kilometers and had 13 turns, as well as a quarter-mile drag strip down the front stretch. The circuit hosted its inaugural top-level event in 1966 after hosting a local weekly series race the year prior. The events in question were the United States Road Racing Championship, or USRRC, and the Can-Am Series, the latter event of which was won by F1 and motorcycle racing champion John Surtees in 1966. Mark Donohue won the USRRC and Trans Am races at Stardust in 1967, with Surtees winning his second consecutive Can-Am race in the same year. Then, in 1968, reigning F1 champion Denny Hulme won the Can-Am race, with the venue also hosting the USAC Champ Car Series that year, with the event being won by Bobby Unser. However, Road course racing at Stardust would come to an end post-1968 as the raceway changed ownership. Drag racing would continue to take place while residential homes were being built on the site of the rest of the circuit, but the track would cease operations in 1970. It would be replaced by the Las Vegas Speedrome, another road course, which opened in 1972. The Las Vegas Speedrome was opened in February 1972 with only a quarter-mile drag strip on offer to the local racing fans. However, a road course was opened a few weeks later, with IMSA hosting a race there in the July of 72. After that, not much is documented about the circuit until the year 1983, where one of the corners on the road course was slightly modified. While the Speedrome failed to attract any major racing series in that time, there was another racing project going on in Las Vegas. Formula One had arranged for a race to be held in the parking lot of the Caesars Palace Casino. The thinking behind it was that it would bring a lot of attention and sponsors to host an F1 race in Vegas. The Grand Prix was penciled into the calendar for the 1981 season finale just a week after the race held at Watkins Glen on the East Coast. However, the race at the Glen fell off the calendar as the organisers had failed to pay the drivers following the 1980 race, therefore giving the Caesars Palace race far more prominence. The first race held on the circuit hosted a three-way title fight between Nelson Piquet, Carlos Reutemann and Jacques Laffite. Piquet won the title, but the drivers criticised the track for its boring and featureless layout. The racing action itself wasn't that bad, it was just unappealing to race on. McLaren driver John Watson said, "You had this totally flat ground and 3-foot-high concrete barriers, so you had very little sense of reference points. It was probably the least appealing Grand Prix circuit I think I've raced on." Meanwhile, the 1980 champion and the circuit's first race winner, Alan Jones, said it was a goat track flattened out. I mean, I'm not really sure what a goat track is, but we move. With such scathing critics, it was no surprise when the 1982 season finale produced another boring race, crowning Keke Rosberg as world champion. Having failed to win over drivers, spectators, or organisers, the track was removed from the Formula One calendar and moved over to IndyCar for 1983. The IndyCar layout of the circuit bypassed the several hairpin turns that the F1 cars made, instead creating a distorted oval with 5 turns and 2 heavy braking zones. "I really think it is a road course," said John Paul Jr., who qualified on the pole for the 1983 race. "Any time you have to downshift and heel and toe, the art of road racing, I really do feel this is a road course. The track is very difficult, you can't see around the corners, and they're all blind and it's all flat, there's no banking to it whatsoever. It's very challenging. It's a fun place to drive, but you have to be very precise." Mario Andretti won the 1983 race after battling Paul Jr., then sealed his 1984 title at the Caesars Palace circuit by finishing second to Tom Snever. That, however, was the final race run on the course. Caesars Palace had lost interest in motorsport and the site was soon transformed beyond all recognition. Nowadays, there is an extension to the hotel and a shopping mall where the track once sat. So not only had NASCAR and IndyCar failed to catch on in Vegas, but so had Formula One. It seemed no track could find racing success in Sin City. Following the failure of the Caesars Palace circuit, the Las Vegas Speedrome was the only major circuit still running in the local area. In 1985, a man named Alexander Rodriguez leased the Speedrome facility from the city of Las Vegas and added a 3/8 of a mile short track nowadays known as the Bull Ring. Then in 1989, Ralph Engelstad purchased the track and renamed the facility Las Vegas Speedway Park. The next development for the racetrack was a $72 million project to build a super speedway fit for hosting major championships. The 1.5 mile speedway's construction was undertaken during 1995 and the existing road course was given a revamp as a lot of the original layout was demolished to build Turn 1 of the new speedway. The Indy Racing League was the first major series to christen the track, testing there in June of 1996 before the first IRL race on the speedway on the 16th of September in the same year. Richie Hearn won that inaugural event in September, while the AMA Superbike finale was also held at Vegas in October of 1996. More rounds of the NASCAR Winston West, NASCAR SuperTruck, and the World of Outlaws series rounded off the competition year in November for its first year in action. The NASCAR Sprint Cup came to Las Vegas in 1998 for the first time since the race on the Park Speedway in 1955. Mark Martin won the 400-mile race in front of 120,000 spectators, raking in $40 million for the local economy. However, at the end of 1998, the track's owners, Engelstad and his partner, sold the track to Bruton Smith Speedway Motorsports Group for $215 million, as they felt they had no clue how to run a racetrack as a business. With Bruton Smith now at the helm, Las Vegas Motor Speedway flourished as it hosted many racing categories. The American Le Mans Series drove twice on the oval road course, with JJ Leto and Steven Soper taking the win for BMW in 1999, and Audi with Frank Biella and Emanuele Pirro taking the plaudits in 2000. In 2004 and 2005, the Champ Car Series used a tri-oval configuration, with Newman Haas driver Sebastian Bourdais taking the win for both races. Minor changes to the outfield road course happened in 2003 and 2005. Then in 2006, they changed the tri-oval's degree of banking from 12 degrees to 20 degrees of progressive banking to improve the racing action, adding multiple grooves of racing. NASCAR returned in 2007 to the track, with Jimmy Johnson winning for the third straight year at the venue. However, after years of success under new management from Bruton Smith, 2011 would be the darkest day in Las Vegas motor racing history and one of the most tragic events in the last 20 years of motor racing in general. IndyCar had been on the rise since the reunification of American open-wheel motorsport in 2008. CEO Randy Bernard had brought the sport into the public eye, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. The 2011 IndyCar season saw an incredible title fight between Dario Franchitti and Will Power, and it would go down to the wire at the last race of the year at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. There was another interesting storyline going into the finale. The reigning Indianapolis 500 winner, Dan Wheldon, had accepted a challenge put on by IndyCar themselves. The challenge stated that any non-full-time IndyCar driver that agreed would start at the back of the field in 34th place during the race. If they then went on to win the race, they would win $5 million. Dan Wheldon accepted the challenge and thus started at the back of the field. Going into the race, drivers had warned the organisers and journalists alike that the expected speeds of the cars could reach or exceed 230 miles an hour. The pole position speed set by Tony Kanaan was 222.078 miles an hour, and the multi-groove racing, seen previously at Vegas, would improve the ability for cars to draft each other and push speeds even higher. Many drivers were worried going into the race that there would be problems, but the organisers pushed ahead, not wanting to cancel the season finale that everyone wanted to see. Some had even suggested that they should increase the drag of the cars by adding a lip to the rear wing, although this would in itself create more side-by-side action and thus potentially create more crashes, even if it reduced speed. The race started, and everyone was in one massive pack, with cars going 2 and 3 wide up and down the field. Then, on lap 11, there was contact between Wade Cunningham and James Hinchcliffe. After clipping Hinchcliffe's car, Cunningham then collided with J.R. Hildebrand. Hildebrand's car then went airborne over the back of Cunningham. Jay Howard and Townsend Bell were then collected by the swerving car of Cunningham, who then hit the retaining wall. Vitor Almeida then lost control of his car trying to avoid the crash, collecting the cars of Charlie Kimball and E.J. Viso. Thomas Scheckter then braked hard trying to avoid the collision, but he was ran into by Paul Tracy and by Pippa Mann, who was trying to avoid the slowing car of Alex Lloyd. Then, Dan Wheldon and Will Power both came up on the collision at 220 miles an hour, and although they tried slowing down, both went airborne trying to avoid the crash. Wheldon went over the back of Kimball's car and launched about 325 feet into the air, hitting the catch fence in cockpit first, with Wheldon's head striking one of the poles holding the fence up. His car then landed back on the tarmac, having been sliced apart by the fence, and slid to a stop next to the safer barrier. Power's airborne car went into the safer barrier and rolled over, causing the front assembly of the car to break, and one of the wheels nearly struck Power's helmet. 15 cars in total were involved in the crash, with many being strewn across the track. Ryan Briscoe said of the incident, "The debris we all had to drive through the lap later, it looked like a war scene from a Terminator or something. I mean, there were just pieces of metal and car on fire in the middle of the track with no car attached to it, and just debris everywhere." IndyCar red flagged the race, and repair work began on the catch fence and the damaged cars that weren't beyond repair. After a drivers' meeting held at approximately 3 p.m. Eastern Time, IndyCar CEO Randy Bernard made a statement to the media. IndyCar is very sad to announce that Dan Wheldon has passed away from unsurvivable injuries. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family today. IndyCar, its drivers, and team owners has decided to end the race. In honour of Dan Wheldon, the drivers have decided to do a 5-lap salute in his honour. It will take place in approximately 10 minutes. Thank you. The drivers did 5 laps at pace car speed to honour Wheldon, with a timing tower showing only his number 77, at the top of it. IndyCar have not returned to Las Vegas Motor Speedway since Wheldon's death, and many drivers criticised the organisers' lack of consideration for safety at the event. Thomas Schechter's father, the 1979 Formula 1 World Champion Jody Scheckter, was heavily critical of the decision to race in Vegas. He said that a serious accident was inevitable, as they were basically touching wheels at 220 miles an hour. They all bunch up together, so there are 34 cars in a small space of track. One person makes a mistake, and this happens. You shouldn't have to get killed if you make a mistake. It was madness, he said. An investigation was conducted into the cause of Weldon's death, and Brian Barnhart detailed the events surrounding the crash in a later interview. He said, "The chassis of Weldon's 77 car impacted a post along the right side of a tub and created a deep defect in the tub that extended from the pedal bulkhead along the upper border of the tub and through the cockpit. As the race car passed by, the pole intruded into the cockpit and made contact with the driver's helmet and head. Dan's injury was limited to his head injury. Dan appeared to suffer from two distinct head forces. The first head force created a level of head injury criterion, also known as a HIC number, that normally does not produce any injury. During the initial crash sequence, the accident data recorder measured 12 or 13 impacts. During that time frame, one of those impacts measured a measurable HIC number for Dan. That's a number that does not normally cause injury. The number was low enough. The second force was a physical impact, and it was a second force that caused a non-survivable blunt force injury trauma to Dan's head. As a result of the events that transpired at Vegas in 2011, IndyCar has mostly removed itself from the idea of pack racing usually seen in NASCAR that caused Weldon's death, and continuous safety improvements have meant that Weldon's death and that of Justin Wilson should be the last in major oval racing series. Since IndyCar's withdrawal, the only series to race regularly on the Las Vegas Tri-Oval circuit are the NASCAR Cup, Xfinity and Truck Series. The track has mostly shaken off any bad reputation it had following the death of Dan Weldon, and IndyCar has returned to the track in one form. In 2022, IndyCar returned to Las Vegas Motor Speedway, promoting a new annual race event, the Indy Autonomous Challenge, held during the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. The race has been held on the oval with autonomous cars. So, Las Vegas's previous flirtations with motorsport have all had mixed results. But how will the new Las Vegas Strip Street Circuit do? Only time will tell. But I, for one, hope it will be a fantastic race event, even if there are several problems with it. Even if the temperatures are too low. Even if the organisers put on cringe pre-race shows that nobody wants. Even if the celebrities are going to ruin it. Even if the whole thing is just a facade for all the big hitters in the world of motorsport. Even if it's just for rich people. Anyways, that's the end of the video, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed me branching out from F1, albeit not entirely. I will still focus primarily on F1, but stories like these are much juicier when you add in other series, so I hope you all understand. Go follow my Instagram account at nedzo_F1, or follow the link in the description, and also follow my Patreon, where I'll post videos a day earlier than YouTube's variants. With that, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all later. Bye!